Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Here on this channel, I share videos about sewing, pattern drafting, and everything fashion. On today's tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to draft and sew this beautiful trouser with pinafore. And if this seems like what you're interested in, you might want to hit the subscribe button and also tap on the notification bell so we can dive into the main video. So the first thing I did was to fold my fabric in two equal halves like this, just wide enough to contain the front pattern of my trouser. So as you can see, I'm drafting the front trouser first of all. I'm going to determine the wideness using my tie line. So now the first thing I'm going to do is to mark 1 inch all the way along this pattern like this. So I'll be marking 1 inch just like you see me doing like this. And after you are done doing this, go ahead and connect it into a straight line with your ruler. So guys, after you are done connecting the straight line, go ahead and mark a line for the starting line right above the top, just like you see me doing, and then mark your hip line. So for my client, I have about 8 inches and I'm going to mark that, followed by the crotch depth. So for the crotch depth, I'm using 11.5. This is because the trouser is free, it's not actually tight on her. So I'll just go ahead and connect my lines into a straight line, just like you see me doing. And then the next thing to do is to determine the hip measurement. So I'll go ahead and measure my hip measurement on the tie line. Okay, mark your hip line measurement and also add your ease allowance before connecting it all the way to the top with your ruler. So after you're done with that, go ahead right now and then mark the curve for your crotch. We'll call it crotch curve. So I'm going to go ahead right now and erase this first line. Then I'll go ahead and place my curve ruler and then just draw a little bit of a curve here for the crotch curve. So after that, I'm going to determine the measurement for the thigh line. So for the thigh, I'm adding extra 1 inch to make it up to 13 inches instead of the usual 12 inches, because for my client I have 12 inches for her thigh. So I'll go ahead right now and just mark my measurement there, and then I will head back to the waistline and then mark the quarter of the waistline measurement. Okay, your waistline circumference divided by 4, and then I'll also add 1 inch for the sewing allowance. So I'll go ahead and connect it to the hip line and the thigh line this way. If you are curvy, go ahead and make it curved. Use a curve ruler to mark a curved line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to determine the knee line. Here I'm marking 19 inches and I'm going to connect it with my ruler just like I did for the others. And after that, the next thing I'm going to do is to determine the middle line and the midpoint of the front piece. I'll go ahead and just mark this point like this. I measured half of what I have for the waistline here with no dart intake or dart allowance. It's optional if you want to add yours. So I have about 7.5 and I'm just marking it this way. I'm going to use that to determine the midpoint of this front piece. Just go ahead and connect it into a straight line with your ruler. Make sure that your line is in the middle and it's not bent. Okay. So guys, after you're done drawing a straight line in the middle, go ahead and determine the size of your knee circumference. So for me, I have 15 inches, which is for my client. I'm going to be dividing that into 2 equal halves. But in a case where you don't want it to be so fitted on your knee, go ahead and mark 1 inch away from the actual measurement which you have on your knee circumference. Okay, so just go ahead and mark 1 inch on the inseam and 1 inch on the outseam, and then get your pants curve and connect it into a curved line, just like you see me doing. So I'm going to stop here and then I'll head over to this side and then connect it into a curve. Okay, so remember that if you are not curvy, go ahead and just make it a bit slanted, not so curvy. But if you are curvy, please use your pants curve very well. So guys, I'll go ahead and complete the rest of the lines with a straight ruler so that I'll give it this straight pattern we used to see on our palazzo pants. So the trouser is not a pencil trouser, it's just a straight pattern with a straight cut. Okay, it's not that wide, but I want it to be straight. So now I'll go ahead and work on the waistline, come in wet by half of an inch, just like a semi marking, and then connect it to my ruler, and also reduce the waistline by half of an inch on the crotch area. Also, I'll be marking 1 inch on the out seam for the sewing allowance. all the way down to the length of the trouser. I already marked 1 inch on the inseam when I was drawing the tie. So next thing to do right now is to cut out my patterns and get ready to draft the back. So guys, after I was done cutting out my front piece, I thought of reducing the waistline by half of an inch for the band. So the next thing I did was to go ahead and fold my fabric into 2 for the back piece. So as you can see, I have wider fabric for the back. I'm just going to add 2 inches here, just like you see me marking, somewhere around the tie, okay? Extend it by 2 more inches and then just go ahead and draw your curve like this up to this point. So for me, I'll be adding extra half of an inch and then half inch on this other side. This is because I want to have a dart intake for the back piece. Remember, our dart is 1 inch, so half inch plus half inch equals 1 inch. So I'm just going to include that. Let me just go ahead and adjust it the way I want it to look like. So just imagine this is our dart here. So when you take in your dart of about 1 inch, remember that you are going to have equal sides on both sides. So that's what I'm doing exactly. As for the zipper area, it's going to be by the side. So I went upwards around the waistline for the back by 1 inch. Okay, because the person I'm actually making this clothes for is not that curvy. And as you can see, I connected my 1 inch straight into the line just to have equal line on the sides. So next thing I'm going to do right now is just to measure what I have here. I have about 10 inches, okay? So I'm going to measure this middle part and then I'll be marking. It's just like you see me pointing. So I'll go ahead and use that for my dart intake after notching. So on this side, on the inseam, go ahead and add your 2 inches all the way down to the length of your trouser. Connect with your ruler and cut, cut, cut. So guys, I'm going to reduce my waistline by 1.5 inch here because I want to add a band for it. So I'll go ahead and take away 1.5 inch on the back piece, and also I'll repeat the same thing for the front piece as well. Don't worry, I'll be replacing it back in form of a band. So guys, after I was done reducing the waist, the next thing I'm going to do is to include my pockets for the front piece. So I'm going to measure 2 inches on the side like this and then determine how long I want it to be, and then I'll be using my curve ruler to draw a curve for the pockets, okay? So what I'm actually drawing is going to be what I am taking away, but I'll be replacing that back with a pocket facing, okay? For the size of the pocket, I am measuring 6 inches width and then 12 inches long. So the pocket is 6 inches by 12 inches. I'll go ahead and connect it to follow the line of the waistline before cutting it out. So just go ahead and mark your curve to follow the piece you are taking out and then measure the length. For the length, I am using 12 inches, okay? And this is what it should look like after you are done drawing. So go ahead and pick your curve ruler and just make a curve, or better still, use your hand to make a curve, okay? And afterwards, go ahead and cut it out. So I am actually cutting out 2 pieces like this. I'm going to be cutting out 2 more pieces and then differentiate the both patterns as to which one will be the pocket facing and the one that will serve as the pocket itself. This is how I usually cut my pocket each time I'm making a pants trouser, but there's another alternative you can use to achieve this. So guys, I have 4 pieces here. I'm going to be taking away 2 for the pocket facing and then use the remaining 2 to cut out the pocket itself. So go ahead and just trace out what you have around this part to make it up. And this is what it looks like. I'll go ahead and just mark the wrong side of it so I wouldn't get confused when I want to attach them together. So guys, next thing on the list is to mark and draft the pinafore itself. So I'm going to be using my pattern paper. This is a half scale pattern paper, so I'm going to use that as a template to get my pinafore pattern. Just as you have seen on the picture, I have a block pattern for the pinafore. So next thing you're going to do right now is to mark 4 inches away from your neckline and then measure about 5 inches here, okay? Just draw 5 inches and then connect it upwards. So if you want it to be very wide, go ahead and mark your pattern this way. But for the measurement of my client, I'm going to be taking out 1.5 inch more just to get her actual measurement. So this is what I took out after I was done cutting. What I have left is going to serve as a pinafore. So total length of what is here is 12 inches, and then this is just the 4 inches I marked away from the neckline. All right, and then here is the waistline. So I'm going to cut it out, unfold, and this is what it looks like. I also cut out the second piece to serve as a lining piece, and if you have stay, go ahead and attach your stay on one of it just to strengthen the fabric. And if you don't have stay, you use it that way. So guys, I've gone ahead to work on the front and the back of the trouser. First, I went ahead to stitch the curve on the machine, and then I also closed the dart. As you can see, it's taking another shape. The only part that has a dart is the back piece, okay? I'm going to remind you about that again. So after you're done closing the middle, which is a curve, go ahead and repeat the same thing on the front piece. Just go ahead and stitch it by 1/2 inch, and then ignore the center piece because there is no dart, and then this is what it looks like. I'm going to head over right now and work on the pockets. So for me to fix the pocket, I'm going to bring my pockets and the pocket facing. This is the pocket itself. So I'll go ahead and just close them this way with the right side facing each other. Make sure that the part you marked with the chalk line is facing upwards. Then cover it on both sides. Head over to your machine and then stitch it by 1/2 inch on both sides, just like you see me pointing. And after I am done doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to close the pocket facing right on top of it this way with the right side facing downwards, and then stitch in the middle just like this. Okay, it should look this way after you are done. So this is what it looks like after I was done stitching. The next thing I did was to notch it on the inside this way and then iron it out to give it a neat finishing. So this is what it looks like. I also went ahead to top stitch on the top just to hold it in place before placing my back piece right side to right side facing each other. So I'll head over to the machine and close the sides. When stitching on the sides, endeavor to stitch by 1/2 inch, okay, so you have ease around it because the trouser is just a free pattern. It's not supposed to be tight. I also have my zipper which I intend to attach on one side of it. This is what it looks like after I was done closing the both sides and the middle. So I'll go ahead right now and work on the pinafore pattern itself. I have a rectangle here and I'm going to stitch it by 1/2 inch all the way around, just like you see me pointing, and then leave the lower part open. The upper part is going to be closed along with others. I already went ahead to cut out a long strip of fabric which is wide enough to go around my waist. So this is going to serve as the band. And this strip of fabric is 2.5 inches wide, and folding it into two, you can see that it's almost the same measurement with the waistline for the pants. So this particular pinafore pattern will stay right on top of it this way after joining. So the next thing I'm going to do right now is to stitch it all around with my hemming gum attached alongside, and after I am done notching the pointy areas like this, I'll go ahead and just turn it inside out and then press it very nicely on the ironing board. So guys, this is what my pattern looks like after I was done stitching and ironing them all through. The next step is to go ahead and fix my pinafore to the band before attaching it to my trouser. So guys, I'm going to open this up and then I'll go ahead and just match it up to the notch point I did for the pinafore. This is because this band will be going round the waistline of the trouser. So the first thing to do right now is just to place the pinafore in between the bands that I have. Okay, since I have two pieces here, I'm going to sandwich it in between the band. So just go ahead and place it this way using the notch points you made. Remember to align it and pin it down before stitching all the way down to this part by 1/2 inch. So because I'm going to separate this later on, I'll go ahead and also attach my pinafore belt. Okay, so these are the belts I have here. I've gone ahead to stitch it all up and turn it out on the right side and also pressing it very nicely. So I have two pieces here. I'm just going to align it to fall in the measurement of the front like this. Okay, just have one piece here and one piece on the other side. To achieve this, I went ahead to fold this part and then I'll be notching this point because I'm going to be cutting it off later on. So I'll go ahead and place one of it this way and also sandwich it in between my band, just like I did for the pinafore. And also I'll go ahead and do the same thing and then pin them down one after the other. So this is what it should look like after you are done. So the next step is to go ahead and stitch it by 1/2 inch all the way along the base like this, and then turn it inside out after you are done. This is what I had after I was done stitching, and now I'm going to separate the side and then fix the lower part, which is the trouser pattern. So guys, after I was done with that, the next thing I did is to open up my trouser on one side to insert my band. So I'm going to be closing it this way with the right sides facing each other, and after I was done with that, I'm going to do the same thing for the front piece. Alright guys, this is what I had after I was done stitching the waistline and joining the pinafore pattern to the trouser pattern. So you can see that I have all the pieces attached nicely with neat finishing. I also included my zipper, okay, and this is what it should look like after you're done fixing the pinafore to your trouser pattern. So the next thing left for me to do right now is to fix my buttons. These are the buttons I intend to use for this. I'm going to be picking 2 for this one and then use the remaining 2 for the second one I am stitching. So go ahead and just place it this way, okay, not really on the pinafore itself, but just on the crossing belt. And also don't forget to hem the lower part of the trouser. Do that by folding it twice and then stitching on it all the way around and press it all through. So that will bring us to the end of the video. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye for now.